Welcome back to Deep Images. If it's your first time on the channel, welcome to Deep Images. Deep Images pretty much features the wildest film talk on the interwebs. So please like and subscribe. You can get all of our content as soon as it's ready. We review movies of all genres and television series of all genres from every angle possible, some very controversial at times. So our current series which has been ministered by me, Henry Covert, and my co-hosts, C.F. Roberts and Justin Cotton, uh, is samurai films, the Chanbara. And the Chanbara is one of my personal favorite genres. I love them. Just like kung fu films or spaghetti westerns. I like when I'm in a mood for like a lot of action in a certain milieu. I'll just watch a bunch of them, and some of them all kind of run together. But eventually the cream rises to the top. You'll find in these genres. So I wanted to talk about one that is kind of, I think it rises above the cream. I think it ascends to the heavens, and that may sound lofty, but I think because it's so under discussed, and only because its director did two uh, immortal, ineffable masterpieces, and so this one's overshadowed a little bit. Uh, so one of our last sessions, Bill Mulligan covered a wonderful film called, I mean, when I say wonderful, I mean it's great. It's not like fun for the whole family film called Harakiri,
Oh yeah.
starring Tatsuya Nakadai, which we kind of came to the group conclusion that Seven Samurai is kind of the best, but Harakiri's kind of the best. It's like neck on neck of samurai
Mhm.
films. So Harakiri is intense. So same director, Masako Kobayashi. The other masterpiece he did was Kwaidan, which we have not covered on this channel, but highly recommend. Horror film with elements of GD Geke and samurai. Um, so this film is called Samurai Rebellion. It's a 1967 film. I understand that was a really great year for the world. And the actual Japanese title is Joiuchi Hariozuma Shimatsu. And it was written by Shinobu Hashimoto, who wrote Rashomon and the Seven Samurai, or
Oh
co-wrote.
yeah.
And it is based on Hariyozama Shimatsu by Yasuhiko Takaguchi, who I'm not that familiar with. Um, Quite a pedigree, though. Music is by Toru Takamitsu, um, who has done countless scores. He's also done choral arrangements, film scores, TV scores, theater scores, experimental music. I mean, he's done about 1,000 albums. So you have to like flip on your phone before you find some movies that you're looking for. Uh, Notably, movies that he's done incredible soundtracks for on this channel are Harakiri, we've covered, Pale Flower, we have covered, and The Face of Another, we have covered. And his stuff tends to be experimental. It's very kind of sound like music concrete, and he uses these authentic Japanese instruments to kind of create these sounds. And there's a lot of that in this movie, actually. So Samurai Rebellion stars yet again Toshiro Mifune, and I believe this is one of his very finest roles. I would probably put it in his top two or three best roles. Um, he hits the range of acting ability. So he plays a character called. Let me make sure I get this pronunciation correct here. I want to do this guy justice. Isaburo Sasahara, and Isaburo is basically the head of a small family, the Sasaharas, and they kind of built up from nothing. Basically, his father-in-law recognized him and when he was young, and that he was like about pretty much ascending to become the greatest swordsman in Japan. And so he became a samurai, but settled down with a family. His wife Shuga it's close to sugar, but she's really more like poison. She's this a vile Lady Macbeth kind of character who harps on every. I mean, they even in the subtitles he uses the word henpecked 3 or 4 different times. um, yes, she's very in control of him, and so he just kind of lets her. He just passively lets her just spew her venom. Um, until there's a big thing to decide here. So his son, Yotaro, and I'm gonna credit this actor because it's not one I'm familiar with that much. Go Kato, Go Kato. He should have had his own TV show. Yogoro. Yogoro is kind of a young samurai. He's trained in it. And they also have a brother named Bunzo who's kind of just kind of an idiot. Um, but you'll see why I say that later. But Yogoro is pushed into a wedding with a young woman called Lady Ichi, and she is a very lovely and luminescent character. She's always in white. You know, she was briefly a lady of the Lord of that I don't know how you call it, dominion or domain. It's called the Aizu domain. So imagine a domain being probably like a cluster of villages or villas, and you know they answer to the daimyo, and of course there's a bureaucracy there. Well, for worse, they answer to the chamberlain, and then above there, there's the daimyo, and then it goes up to the shogunate, and so it's kind of like, you know, a town city, then you go to the state government, then you go to the federal government. I'm just making an analogy for nowadays for anybody. But
Mm.
so uh, the lord of this dominion, who is under the daimyo, is this his domain is named after him, and it is Marakata Matsudera. They're really not cool people, but they take notice of this young girl. Some of this is unfolded through flashbacks. Um, this young girl Ichi, she's 19, and the guy Matsumoto, who was at that time the leader of the Masadera, Matsumoto is 50, and she describes him as a filthy worm crawling across her body on their wedding night. So
Woo.
that's pretty rough.
Hush.
Yeah, love the pillow talk.
Yeah, sexy. So she bears him one child, and his child is named Kukuchio, the name of the character Toshiro Mifune plays in the Seven Samurai. Probably not an accident, or maybe that's a really common name in Japan, and we don't know. Um, Yo, Kukuchio, but so she bears him a child, and then she kind of uh, Matsumoto just kind of disposes of her, you know, and he decides he's going to keep the child, and he doesn't really need this kind of peasant woman anymore. He's sated his lust, so he more or less divorces her. They don't, you don't use that exact term, but and they kind of turn her over to the house of Sasahara, um, and you know they want uh Yogoro, the son, to marry her, and look, dog. I don't care if you like this movie or not. Just keep out of it. So, yeah, Yogoro does marry her, and it's very the parents resist at first. Well, okay, the father resists. Toshiro Mifune as Isaburo. Isaburo is, I'd say, he's one of the most honorable, ethical, strong-willed characters I've ever seen him play, and that I've ever seen in a samurai movie. His code of honor and his strength of resolve, it's admirable. It brings tears to my eyes, and it's a swelling in my heart. And I'm not exaggerating, so y'all can make fun of me all you want, but I'm a sensitive guy. So, the thing about this cat, Isaburo, is he's like, I don't want my son to marry this, basically like this leftover from the daimyo. It's ridiculous. And so they're not happy with early on the bureaucracy rears this ugly head, and they're like, they're always like, Isaburo, you've got to think clearly. You've got to do this. This is what the daimyo wants. There's no other choice. It's like okay. Um, the mother Suga, she is really for it, and she's like basically telling her husband to shut the hell up. And really, the only reason she's for it is because he's against it. If he were for it, she'd be against it. She really doesn't really care about the daimyo or the lord and the chamberlain and all this political stuff. She just likes controlling her family with an iron fist. So it happens. And then, when the movie begins, Mifune's character actually has the shaven head, which he didn't really shave his head. It was a bald cap. The shaven head and the top knot. But Mifune hardly ever appears in films in with that look. This is one of the only ones. I honestly can't think of any others. There probably are, but I don't know if it was in his contract, like, hey man, I'm gonna wear my hair because I'm kind of a sex symbol or what. But um, and playing his best friend is called Asano Tadawaki, and Asano is played by the mighty, immortal Tatsuya Nakadai. And also has his head shaved that way. And he has done it in more than one movie, um, because he truly is a chameleon physically, and they're best friends. So this is an incredible, just having these two guys, these icons of Chanbara, in a movie directed by Kobayashi is a coup. I mean, uh, it's just unbelievable. So not that they aren't in other movies
Yeah.
together in other capacities, it's just seeing them both as these middle-aged samurai. They're playing characters very slightly older than they really were, and it's fascinating. And you see the love and respect between them. And so Asano gives Isaburo some quiet counsel, mild counsel. And he just kind of has that haunted look that Nakadai has with his eyes. And he can turn it any way. Like at any minute, he can be like depressed, sad. He looks like he's about to kill you, with rage. He's just got that thing going on with his face. Anyway, to speed things along, the marriage happens, and 2 years pass. Isaburo's grown his hair back. In other words, they've taken the bald cap off of Mifune, so he looks a lot cooler. And they've had a child. The couple has had a child named Tomi, a little girl. Uh, so everything seems cool, even though the mother is still just, obnoxious, horrible, harridan. But the thing about this is good things are not meant to last. So, um, or as Isaburo says, his philosophy more than once in the film, each must live his own life. So Isaburo is like a civil libertarian existentialist kind of character. I mean, he really he is not like he is not bound by all these codes of samurai and propriety of his culture. He believes in what he calls the laws of humanity, the morals of humanity and of heaven. And he they even talk about the gods and the ceremonies. He and Nakadai, and apparently both of them are atheists. Yet they believe there's like heaven and maybe a god, but they don't believe in any of the gods that their people in their village believe in. So he Isaburo's he's a I don't know how else to say it. He's a deep motherfucker, and I love this character. So um Unfortunately, Matsumoto, the asshole who had married Ichi first and had the son by her, he kicks off. And so the daimyo kind of freaks out because he's like, we got to have an heir. We don't have any heir except this little boy. So they're like, somebody's got to raise the little boy, and they're like, well, get the mother of the little boy because they just see her as just disposable, material anyway, obviously. So they go in all seriousness to the Sasahara family and are like, we're gonna take Ichi back. We don't care if she has a daughter by your son, dude. She's coming with us. This conflict just roars on for over an hour or more. Different angles. They argue it in different angles, different ways. Different decisions are made and retracted. And Isaburo and his son and Ichi cannot get through to the Chamberlains or the daimyo. Their whole system, uh, and they won't let Isaburo take it higher, like to the shogunate. And finally, they pretend that they're going to go ahead and just surrender her. See, but the thing is, what strikes Isaburo is, his marriage, as he puts it, there's never been a kind moment in my entire marriage. He said, but you are different. And so it's actually they've become deeply in love and they love their baby and their relationship has nothing to do with arranged marriages or social class. Again, it's like the laws of humanity. These honors codes that our main character lives by, and so does his son and Ichi, and they kind of pretend to give in, and they're gonna like maybe give her back if she agrees to, because there's nothing more they can do, and but Isaburo's playing the long game. It's just kind of stringing it out. Unfortunately, they trick her. Uh, they get a hold of this what do you want to call it? What's the worst possible name for a coward that you could think of, or a sellout? They get a hold of this cat, Bunzo, which is the brother of Yogoro and Isaburo's son. And Bunzo tricks Ichi into going to the Chamberlain's chambers. And they don't plan to ever let her come back. That's her own brother. He's kind of a piece of shit. And so they figure it out pretty quick. And by this time, Isburo's hired a nanny to take care of the kid, in case Ichi's gone forever. The nanny, I don't know the actress's name, but she did play in The Face of Another, which I covered a few months ago. She was the one who played the little girl, well, adult but little girl in her mind. She was like autistic, and she was like the only person who could figure out that Nakadai's character was the same with the bandages and with the fake mask. I mean, no one else could figure it out, but she just knew. She had that, instinct, like animals know certain things or whatever. She just somebody could see it. Anyway, so she takes care of the baby and gets real attached to it. So that frees up Isburo and his son to kind of figure out what the hell are they going to do. And um, he has a talk with Asano, and he's like, I've decided, it's all settled. It's all over. She's there. We're just going to let it go. And Asano's like, yeah, I've been worried about what your response was going to be. And then he says, mind you, his duty is the guardian of the gate to the shogunate, from the daimyo domain to the shogunate. And he just kind of travels around and visits here in these villages and hangs out with Isaburo. But that's his goal. And he's like basically considered the second greatest swordsman in all of this part of Japan after Isaburo, and they're best friends. And so he kind of slyly says, "Well, legally, uh, they kidnapped her. The formal request was never addressed and signed. They just, you know." tricked her, and there she was, and they're like, we're keeping her. And there was never any severance between her and Sasahara clan family. And now, of course, he shouldn't have done that, but he only did that because that's his friend, and he also has that kind of honor thing. So uh, they pretend that they're going to go ahead and do it. And the son is like, yeah, okay, and he's mad because he's like, I'm never letting go of her. And Isabura is basically kind of trying to tell him, chill out, son. We're gonna play the long game. You got to chill out. We're gonna pretend like it's all good, And so uh, basically, what is happening is they just builds and builds to where, okay, it's an impossible situation. I'll just flip over all that. Tons of politics, tons of red tape. They summon Asano and ask his opinion, and I guess they kind of suspect him since they were friends. And he even points out another law that they're breaking. And he said, well, this whole thing is predicated on this law that the Lord must retrieve this woman to raise this child, the dead Lord. And so why won't we follow the other laws? And these other guys are like these old grumpy, totally, utterly corrupt, and they're basically politicians, at this point. And they do what they want. When it serves them, the law is, right in front of people. When it doesn't serve them, oh well, now you're just talking, getting too formal. They tell him he's getting too formal on them, and so he splits, and they send this guy named Geeky. And I just want to talk very, very, very briefly about Geeky because uh, I've never been able to name this actor until tonight, but he's in a lot of these movies. His name's Shigeru Koyama, and he often plays in samurai movies. He often plays with the shaved head or with the bald cap or whatever. And he has this looming eye thing. And the way his hair's cut around his bald thing, he's just he's sleazy. You can never trust him. If you see him in a movie, you know something bad's going to happen, right? So he's called the steward. So basically he's like the messenger boy between the Chamberlain and the Asahara house. Um and Giki, is that his last name? Giki? Yeah, Tashahari. So But Isaburo kind of trusts him. He thinks he's, trying to do the right thing. He's not. He's not trying to do the right thing. And they tell him, okay, we're not going to do it. And in the right before this, there's a scene where they basically dismiss all the servants. It's kind of funny because the nanny who I mentioned is taking care of the little girl, and she's like, "Where is everybody? And why is the furniture arranged different? And why is it?" And he's like, we just need some room for when these kind of things happen. And he's like, yeah, we need the floor a certain way because, when it gets bloody, it's going to be easier to walk over. And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, just go take Tommy in the back, we let everybody else go home for the day. So the father and son are preparing for basically a battle to the death with these people who want to keep Ichi. They're girding up for the fight, and so Geeky, the steward, who's the sleazy dude, he just keeps drawing it out. And the thing is like a slow burn, but it's like harakiri as Bill was describing it. It's like this coiled intensity, like it's coming, and it's getting nearer and nearer to the end of the movie, and it's like the son even says, why are they late for this final meeting? And and even when they meet, like he'll say something to them, and then they bring Ichi herself, and they ask her to disavow the family, and therefore she will, of course, be fine, and they will be imprisoned for life in this place next to the castle instead of committing seppuku, because they've been wanting them to do that the whole time. The only reason once she was kidnapped, the only reason she did gave in was because they said, if you don't give in now, we will immediately force the father and son to commit seppuku. Isabella's like, well, that's a big step down from seppuku, and
Hmm.
he just really he's extremely irreverent, and they keep telling him that's a crime. You're committing the crime of being irreverent and to the powers that be, and they're like, well, she begged for your lives. He's like, we know all this. I don't know how they found out, but he plays the card and it happens to be right. He's like, we know that, and we're not gonna do that. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to do the trade, and if you don't agree, then we are going to make you do seppuku. He goes, well, make you a deal. If you if we commit seppuku, right before we commit seppuku, will you bring us the heads of the daimyo, the chamberlain, and the other guy? I can't think of his name. Basically, the three people who were in charge of this whole fiasco and commanding everybody to do this. And of course, Geki and all these people are like outraged. They're just like, "How could you say such a thing?" And it's pretty bold. But he says it with a straight face, just like our character did in Sagumo did in Harakiri. And they tell Ichi, if you renounce them now, they'll go to the prison for life. Everything will be fine. We can finish all this. And again, it's drawn out. And she's standing between these two soldiers that are, what the hell? Oh, these two soldiers that are holding spears. And I think it's just to like keep her from running back to them, to her husband. And they ask her, are you going to renounce the Sasaharan family? And she says, no, I am the wife of Yogoro Sasahara. I will never renounce the family. And they keep asking her, and she keeps saying it. And see, they can't kill, they're bound by law not to hurt her because she's now the lady of that, area because she's raising the heir. So we're once again going to try to bring a fourth member into the mix here, to keep it exciting. Um, so
There you go.
it's really kind of on her.
Right.
It just gets a little tense, and finally, uh, you might have seen this coming based on what I said a minute ago, but she hurls herself onto one of the spears of one of the guys behind her.
Oof.
So that kind of settles that. She's dead, so they no longer have a bargaining chip. No, nobody does. And of course, the husband runs over to her. Unfortunately, in doing so, he's right in the middle of all these people instead of up on the steps of his house now, and he's holding her body. So I mean, he's still got his sword, but and his father's like, and yeah, they stab him with a spear. He grabs their spear and starts killing them, but then they hack him down. It takes him a while to die, and finally our man Mifune's had enough, and he just starts slaying all the fucking dudes in his way, just whacking them down one after the other relentlessly. And he gets to his son, and he's like, Yogoro, are you okay? And obviously he's not okay, but and he's dying, and he takes Yogoro's hand, uh, and he puts it on the deceased Ichi's hand and holds it there for a second, and that made me drop a tear because it's like his whole thing is their love gave him hope for humanity being more than just a bureaucratic system where we're just all forced to play a certain role in society. Then once the son and daughter-in-law are dead,
Okay.
then all bets are off. So what you've been waiting for is the all out. And this is in the last 10 minutes, just like in Harakiri. And he kills a couple of dozen. He's on his way to Geeky, the steward for the Chamberlain, who's been a dick about the whole thing and presenting all of these decrees. And that guy's a coward. He's got a sword, but he's a coward. He keeps running away. Mifune goes through all of them. None of them touch him. And then finally, Inky turns around and he tries to go through this door, and he gets slashed in the back by Isaburo. And here's like the door, and then the sword comes right through the door, and he has this just like expression on his face. Oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not untouchable after all. And he's gone. So then it escalates beyond that. And basically, now that he's done this, uh, he wants to regroup with his child and he wants to go to Edo and make a formal complaint to the shogunate about this this improperly handled situation. So he begins his journey, and unfortunately, when he gets there, the gatekeeper is his friend Asano, Tatsu Nakadai. And, neither of them want to battle, but Nakadai's like, if you must pass this gate, then I must stop you at risk of my life. And then Isaburo, he always has a plan. He's like, what about Tomi? What about the child? Can you take her over to that building over there? And he's like, no. That building is filled with evil men, venomous men. She will not go there. And so it's like you can tell that Asano, even though he's following orders, like I said earlier, he's starting to question too, and he knows that the people who control him are on the in the wrong morally. They put the baby in this little kind of uh, place in this clearing in these reeds because these films, samurai films, always have these fields with all these reeds, and puts her there, feeds her, and the two of them are together. And then uh, uh, Asano says, my friend, let me win the duel, which means basically let me kill you, and I will take care of Tomi and I will raise her. Or well, I won't be raising her, but I'll make sure she's raised and happily without a mother or a father. Um, and so Isaburo's like, no, you're going to lose. I'm going to Edo with Tomi. And he just keeps saying it. He's like a laser beam. He's so focused on his goal. And so they have a duel, and it doesn't last long. It's kind of cool choreography, but there's a cool sweep between the swords, and they both stop. And apparently, Isaburo's so fast that he did cut his buddy. And so his buddy's like clutching his sword, and he's basically telling him, do what you can, take her and go to Edo. I hope you make it, that kind of stuff. And he dies. So that's what he does. He goes to get the baby, but before he can get the baby, he is besieged by these people's swordsmen. And of course, and they run through the reeds, and of course he's just whacking and killing them right and left. But then people standing in the reeds begin shooting rifles at him, and they don't hit him at first. So he like sneaks under the reeds and finds him and like cuts them from the bottom, kills them. But finally, as he's trying to traverse the field and get her, he's shot. He's almost to the last little grassy area before her. He can almost see her, the child, and he keeps saying, "Tomi, we're going to Edo." And finally, he's shot like 5 or 6 times, and he's still crawling, and he crawls almost all the way through the grass. And this is like some fucking Shakespearean level shit here. I mean, obviously Mifune's done Shakespeare because he was in Throne of Blood, but he's just like, Tomi, we're not going to Edo. We're not going to Edo. I'm so sorry. He's like, no one is here to remember your mother and father and the wrongs that were done to them. But I swear, you must promise me that you will grow to be a woman like your mother, and that you will marry a man like your father, who is my son. And, you know, you must. And he dies. And it's like, wow. and you're just like, Toshiro Mifune died. I mean, you're just like this icon of samurai movies. I'm not saying he hasn't died in other movies, but this is just so up close and personal and so sad because he's just every ounce of life. He's just trying to get to this baby. First time I watched this movie, I cried when he's crawling through the fields. And earlier today when I watched it, uh, I started. It got me. It got me a few times, pretty hard. And the nurse has followed them, and she picks up the baby and just kind of walks down this little road. I don't know if she's walking to the castle. I don't know if she's going to escape with the baby. But anyway, the baby's alive. But, there's no need to really say anything more. Obviously, everything I've said is that, you have a handful of extremely honorable men, Isaburo, his best friend, his son, his daughter-in-law, and they're up against a system that they have no chance of winning. And love will not out. They do not care if these two people are in love with each other. That's not, and they pretty much tell them that's not something that's a consideration here, you know. And it's really kind of cold and dystopian, kind of, even though it's set in 1727, by the way. Um, so has anyone seen it? Hidden
No.
Samurai Rebellion. Well, I hope I've whetted your appetite.
Okay, yeah, I've only heard of this movie like literally last week.
Okay. Samurai Rebellion was one I felt should be covered, but I wanted to cover some other stuff and I wasn't sure. So I asked one of our recent panelists, Aaron Garland, to if he would like to cover it, and I have a copy on DVD. And he lives in this city that I dwell in, and I was like, "Can you want me to let you borrow a copy?" He's like, "Uh." And he was kind of like that for 3 or 4 days. And finally I said, well, do you want me to let you borrow the movie? Or do you want Dwayne to get you a copy? He's like, yeah, yeah. So Dwayne got him a copy. I'm not sure if he watched it. There are some things I can't go into about this scenario, but I will go ahead and say on the record, Aaron Garland is the one who suggested we do the topic of samurai films. I had always wanted to, but it didn't seem like I couldn't get enough people at one time to do some. But unfortunately, he did not attend our last samurai session, and nor is he attending this session, and nor is he with the show anymore, and nor will he be with the show. So good luck out there, Aaron, whatever you're doing. But thank you for the suggestions, and I went ahead and took upon myself to.
Sorry.
So that's it for this episode. I'm sorry you guys did not see much of Briggy Williams. Do you want to say hi, Briggy?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
even hear me. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Your
That's
fan
all right.
base,
Yeah,
your fan
that's
base
good.
has been waiting, man.
Oh,
Would you like
seriously.
to take the opportunity to impart some important messages to our viewers?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you should subscribe to our fabulous channel because we love your feedback and hearing what you have to say. And yeah, it'd be great to engage with you. So subscribe,
All right.
share, and like.
We love you guys. Have a good evening.
Have a great evening.
Toodles.
Bye.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.